Hi, everyone. Today we're going to talk about how species originated. The Origin of Species is a book by Charles Darwin, cataloging his theory of evolution. And this theory is what sheds light on how life is so unified. And I mean all life. I mean humans, I mean mammals, I mean bacteria. Everything seems to be connected based on Darwin's theory. And only through the lens of his theory does it really make any sense at all that we're so connected. Speaking of connected, I don't know if any of you all feel this way, but sometimes I feel like I have more in common with my dog than I do with other humans. As you can see from these pictures, humans and dogs have lots of similarities, like haircuts, beards, majestic flowing in the wind hair, and they can often look alike, but they're actually anatomically much more alike than we might expect. And so if we look at the front legs of dogs and humans' arms, you can see that the anatomical structures are very similar. The humerus in the human is mirrored in the dog, as well as the radius in the ulna. And there even seem to be metacarpals, that grow into finger-like projections in both the human and the dog. Now, humans and dogs are both mammals and they both walk on land and they use these arms pretty similarly. Humans don't walk on their arms as much as dogs do, but they are used for pretty similar purposes sometimes. What can be even more shocking is that other mammals or other animals even such as birds and whales have the same structures. So they have something that looks like the humerus. They have two bones here next to each other that make up the bottom part of the arm. They have these yellow bones here, and then they grow into projections like fingers. Now in the whale, it looks the most different from the other three, but you can still see how these structures mirror each other and seem to go along with each other. The study of all of this is called Comparative Anatomy. And this study is what has allowed us to kind of look at these structures, see these similarities, and try to make something of it. So the question becomes why? Why are they similar? Why would all of these different structures that between the four of these animals are used for wildly different purposes? Like birds can fly and whales spend their entire life swimming. Humans and dogs, not so much. And so why are they so similar and how did these similarities come about is the question that we're focusing on today. One big area of clues that humans have looked at and that Darwin really studied very readily is fossils, and kind of the story that fossils tell. And so these are the fossils of horses. And these are the fossils of some animals that are no longer around, that have gone extinct, but are very similar to the horse. And you can see that there are small differences between them. They're very similar, but there are slight differences. And so they're not the same species. That's very clear. But they seem more related than they do unrelated. What you can also notice is when you take that fact and you combine it with the fact that it seems to be progressive, like it seems that these small changes add up over time and like one little thing changes and then another little thing changes. You can see kind of the head, this gap in the jaw here changes little bit by little bit over time until you have this really pronounced bone up here and the gap in the jaw here before the teeth, or between the teeth. And so it seems to be progressive. They're similar with slight differences. When we put these two things together, we come up with this idea that maybe horses have changed over time and that these late Eocene somehow changed to become our recent horses. This was a big thing when Darwin first proposed it, that animals change over time and that current day animals have ancestors in animals that have gone extinct. That was brand new. It might feel really similar and really kind of obvious to us because we've grown up in a world where we talk about evolution. But the idea that horses were not always horses was really big, especially in the context of evolution and the story of in the context of religion and the story of creation. So Darwin had this theory that there was a last universal common ancestor, and that this Luca, as we'll call it, gave rise to all of the species that now inhabit the earth. And so it started out at this point and branched off into bacteria and archaea, and then eukaryotes came off of that. Eukaryotes are animals, plants, fungi, everything that you think of as living. And then archaea and bacteria are single-celled organisms that we think of as bacteria and maybe don't always think of when we think of living organisms. And so this theory suggested that it took millions and millions of years and that everything on Earth that is living is related through this last common ancestor. And so we've built many of these trees showing when different things evolved. This is called a phylogenetic tree, and it shows where things split is where new traits showed up. And so the closer two things are, the closer they're related. So you'll notice, according to this tree, we are actually more related to fungi than we are to plants. And so you can tell how related things are and how they came to be over time. We have since made much more involved versions of this tree of life, this phylogenetic tree. And you can see here that eukaryotes are this small little branch here. Remember that eukaryotes are all plants, animals, fungus, all of that is wrapped up within eukaryotes. You can't even see humans on here. We've only got protists. And then bacteria makes up most of the tree. This is a lot of space taken up by bacteria. This phylogenetic tree, this tree of life, was actually created by picking up pieces of dirt and analyzing the DNA sequences that were found in there and creating full genomes of each species of bacteria that was in that little piece of dirt. And from that, we get this amazing diversity. There are innumerable amounts of species of bacteria, and you can see here just how many there are. Archaea are a little less common, and then eukaryotes are really a small number of species compared to how many bacteria there are on Earth. And so this is something to keep in mind going forward, is that there is this idea of common descent. Like there is this idea of this last known ancestor that would be found somewhere in here where everything branches off of. And all of the diversity of life comes from that. And because of that, we see a lot of unity in life, and we see a lot of unity in species and similarities and things that are very much alike. And so the idea of common descent is an important one for going into the rest of Darwin's theory and starting to talk about natural selection and evolution. I hope this was helpful. Thank you so much.